The man who talked to God. Every day, before the sun came up, a man named Elias woke up in silence. He lived in a small house at the end of a forgotten street. The walls were old. The roof made noise when it rained. And inside that house, there was almost nothing. A small bed, a wooden chair, an old table, and a Bible that was always open in the same place. Elias was not a rich man. He did not have many friends, and his life was not easy. But there was one thing he never stopped doing. Every day, he knelt beside his bed, closed his eyes, and talked to God. In the morning, he would say, "Lord, give me strength for one more day." At night, when he came home tired from work, he would say, "Lord, I survived another day. Thank you for not letting me fall." But as time passed, Elias's heart became heavy. For a few seconds, he said nothing. Then he fell to his knees on the cold floor and began to cry. With a trembling voice, he said, "God, I talk to you every day. I give you my pain, my tears, my fears, but it feels like you never answer me." He took a deep breath and continued, "I do not want to lose my faith, Lord, but I am tired of feeling alone." Elias stayed there, waiting to hear a voice, waiting to feel something, waiting for a sign. But everything remained quiet. All he could hear was the rain hitting the window. So he stood up, took his old coat, and walked out into the street. The city was dark. The streetlights were flickering. The cold wind moved between the houses, and people walked quickly, each one trapped inside their own problems. Elias walked slowly, looking up at the sky, and as the rain fell down his face, he whispered, "Lord, if you are still with me, show me. Show me that my prayers are not in vain." He walked for a long time. He passed empty streets. He passed closed stores. He passed people who did not even look at him, until he reached an abandoned house. The house was old, with a broken door, dirty windows, and cracked walls. But something strange caught his attention. Inside that dark house, a small light was shining. Elias stopped. His heart began to beat faster. He thought about leaving, but something inside him said, "Go in." Slowly, he pushed the door open. The wood made a quiet sound. Inside, the air smelled like dust and abandonment. But in the middle of the room, there was a small table. On the table there was a piece of bread, a glass of water, a folded blanket, and an open Bible. Elias walked closer. When he looked at the Bible, he saw a marked verse, "Do not fear, for I am with you." At that moment, Elias felt his legs become weak. He placed his hand on his chest and whispered, "God, is this for me?" But before he could understand, he heard a sound in the corner of the room. He turned around, frightened. There was an old man sitting on the floor, shaking from the cold. The man wore simple clothes. His face looked tired, and his eyes were full of suffering. Elias asked, "Sir, are you here alone?" The old man answered with a weak voice, "I just needed a place to spend the night." Elias looked at the bread on the table. He was hungry too. But without thinking twice, he took the bread, broke it in half, and gave one piece to the old man. Then he took the blanket and placed it over the man's shoulders. The old man looked at Elias and asked, "Why are you crying, son?" Elias tried to hide his tears, but he could not. He answered, "Because I talk to God every day, but I think He does not talk to me." The old man stayed silent for a moment. Then he said, "Maybe God is speaking, but you are expecting to hear Him in the wrong way." Elias looked at him confused. The old man continued, "You asked for a sign, and you found a light in the middle of darkness. You asked for an answer, and you found His Word open before your eyes. You asked for strength, and even while tired, you helped someone in need. Elias said nothing. Those words entered deep into his heart. Then the old man said, God does not always answer with thunder from heaven. Sometimes He answers with an open door, with a person in your path, with a sentence that appears at the right time, with strength that rises inside you when you thought you could not go on. Elias began to cry again, but this time it was different. It was not a cry of despair. It was a cry of relief. Then he started to remember. He remembered the times he almost gave up, but found strength at the last moment. He remembered the nights when he cried alone, but woke up with peace the next morning. He remembered dangers he escaped without even knowing how. He remembered doors that closed, but later became protection. He remembered people who appeared exactly when he needed help. And finally, he understood. God had never been silent. Elias was the one who was expecting a different answer. He looked at the old man and said, I thought God had abandoned me? The old man smiled softly and answered, Son, God never abandons someone who can still bend their knees and speak to Him. That night, Elias stayed there. He sat on the floor beside that man. He shared the bread. He shared the water. He shared the silence. And in the middle of that old, cold, abandoned house, Elias felt the presence of God, like never before. For the first time in a long time, his heart was at peace. The next morning, when the first rays of sunlight entered through the broken window, Elias woke up, leaning against the wall. The house was filled with golden light. But the old man was no longer there. Elias stood up quickly and looked around. The blanket was folded on the table. The Bible was still open. And beside it, there was a small piece of paper. With trembling hands, Elias picked up the note. It said, When you thought I was not speaking, I was teaching you how to listen. Elias fell to his knees. Tears filled his eyes again, but now he was no longer asking where God was. Now he knew. God had been there the whole time, in the shining light, in the shared bread, in the open word, in the man who needed help, in the peace that entered his heart. Elias went back home that morning, but he did not return as the same man. From that day on, he continued to pray. But now his prayer was different. He no longer prayed thinking God was far away. He prayed knowing that God was near. Near in the silence, near in the pain, near in the tears, near on the path. Every morning, Elias knelt down and said, Lord, today I do not only want to talk to you. Today, I want to learn how to hear you. Because God speaks, but not always with a voice. Sometimes God speaks through the peace that comes after tears. Sometimes God speaks through protection you never noticed. Sometimes God speaks through a simple person. Sometimes God speaks through a door that closes. Sometimes God speaks through pain that teaches. And if today you feel like God is silent, do not think He has abandoned you. Maybe He is protecting you. Maybe He is preparing something greater. Maybe He is strengthening your faith. Maybe He is saying, Be still, my child. I am still here. Do not give up. God heard your prayer. God saw your tears. God knows your battle. And at the right time, you will understand that He never left your side. If you believe that God speaks to those who have faith, write Amen in the comments.